Testing 1, 2, 3. Right, I'm not even sure if this is working. Let's see. Check your oh, right, great. Here we go. What we got here? Are we looking good or what? Testing 1, 2, 3. In the place to be. Oh. Are we live or not? Hey, Mr. Muffwab, how you doing, mate? I'm just sort of about to do this webinar thing about how to connect outboard gear. And I'm not even sure if this thing come up. Did it come up on notifications or what? But it's a quick test. It looks like I'm definitely live here now, guys. So yeah, big up, man, big up. So today is all about connecting your external hardware to your DAW, to your modern DAW. I thought I'd do this because a lot of people have been sort of asking about, you know, how to connect samplers up. So I figured it'd be a good idea to do a video, you know, just maybe a live video with some Q&As and stuff, just to see, you know, how it goes. So without further ado, you know what I mean, we'll just get into it. So connecting hardware is kind of like a tricky process if you don't know what you're doing, and you can damage your equipment. So take time when you're connecting it all up and make sure you've got all the right cables, etc. Right? So moving on. All right, so the initial setup of your outboard gear. First, we're going to talk about the difference between audio and MIDI cables. Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of you already know the difference between them, but let's just assume that you don't, yeah? Audio cables carry sound, basically. We're keeping it in layman terms. Audio signal carries your music to and from your equipment. Nowadays, you tend to find that in the digital realm, we kind of like don't know a lot about the old school way of wiring. And back in the day, we used to wire everything up. The amplifier used to be connected to the tape recorder connected to the amplifier, and so on and so forth. And any bit of gear that you had, like the DAW machine, the mixer, it all had to be connected through wiring. In came Reason. Reason kind of made it all software, so everything's wired software wise these days. Sorry, excuse me, I'm gonna have a little drink of my coffee. So everything's wired software wise. Now guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat box and I'll get back to you. But it doesn't look like a lot of people watching right now because I haven't really promoted this live that well. But anyway, such is life, innit? I just fancy doing it now because it's holidays. All right, so audio carries, you know, the sound from one device to the next. And the principle of that, you know, how to wire one to the next and how the signal travels, we'll get into that a little bit later on, right? Shout out to Domsy. How you doing, mate? Yes. Glad you could join us, mate. Nice one. So, as we were saying, we're just saying about the audio signal carries a signal from one device to the next. Whereas the MIDI carries the notes. So anything you play on the keyboard and stuff, it transmits that data to your equipment. And any of your notes, like how hard you hit the note, how many keys you hit, you know, the polyphony, and you know, the velocity, meaning how hard you hit it, etc. All that stuff is transmitted over MIDI, and that is how the computers talk to each other. And before that, it used to be CV, right? So moving on from that one. Okay, so the types of connectors that we have. We've got Midio interface. Midio. You know, what's wrong with me? That'll be the new one that comes out. You've got MIDI interfaces, yeah. So you connect via your MIDI interface now, or your audio interface, right? So people wonder how you would connect your hardware sampler to your DAW. Now, depending on what you're using, some people have a MIDI interface with built-in, an audio interface with built-in MIDI, and some people have, I would say, don't have MIDI on their audio interface, yeah, and they would need to have a separate MIDI interface to go with it. I.e., we've got some cheap ones here, which is like the Roland UM1. Now, I've made a PowerPoint presentation for the purposes of this video, and it links to various products via Amazon. Now, I must say, these are Amazon affiliate links. I did get that brainstorm at the end of it. I thought, why not? You know what I mean? If you guys purchase using any of the links, I'll put a link to the PowerPoint presentation down below, so you could download it absolutely free. If you do purchase anything using any of the links, I'll probably get a cup of tea or some sugars out of it, which is sweet, yeah? So it's a win-win. All right, so that being said out the way, you've got something here like a Roland UM1 Mark II USB interface. Now, this would give you USB to MIDI in theory. Now, I haven't actually tested this because I don't have one, but this would be a sort of a cheaper end solution. And this actually boasts of low latency. Now, latency is something that you want to watch out for when you're playing MIDI instruments, because and for those of you who don't know what latency is, when you press the key, right, latency is the time that the signal takes to register, yeah, on your computer. So say if you was using a MIDI keyboard and you had a software instrument running, you'd hit the key, bosh, and there'd be like a 0.50 millisecond delay or whatever between the time that you press and the time the sound actually plays. Now, the cheaper shitey ones are going to give you probably a lot of latency. Now, I'm not knocking this one. This one's Roland UM1. Chances are it's Roland. It's a well-known name. These guys pride themselves in what they're doing, and it boasts low latency. It's available for Mac and Windows. So I would like to assume that this bit of kit is good. If anyone's used this in the chat box, yeah, or watching the replay of this video, please comment down below and let the community know what you think of this Roland, this Roland interface. All right, so next one, we've got the top end one, which is low latency. This is a Mo2 Microlight open box. Now, this one is for if you want to connect more than, I'd say, one sampler to your computer, to your DAW, if you like, yeah? This one's for if you want to connect more than one. So say, like, for example, you had a ton of outboard gear. This has got 4 ins and 4 outs. Now, bearing in mind, with MIDI, you can only have up to 16 items per MIDI bus. When I say MIDI bus, I mean per MIDI sort of configuration. So if you strung up your sampler straight to your DAW, you can only run 16 channels of MIDI. Unlike software instruments, it's unlimited channels. So channels don't even exist. You just load as many as your computer will allow until it starts falling apart, till the audio starts mashing up. With MIDI, you can have up to 16 tracks or channels, yeah? How you divide those tracks are totally up to you. You can split them up into octaves, because it would just be, you know, I would say 64 keys roughly off the top of my head per channel. So that's quite a lot of stuff if you separate it up. Shout out to Lemmy Adam. How you doing, mate? We're just talking about connecting audio gear, yeah? So welcome to the party. So this would be the top end one that I would recommend. Mo2 has been around for many, many moons now. And back in the day, they used to do some suave MIDI interfaces that, you know, you had to have a separate MIDI interface back in the day. As I was saying, nowadays, a lot of audio interfaces have built-in MIDI interfaces in them. so you wouldn't even need to worry about that unless you had a specific card that didn't support that. And there are cards out there, don't get me wrong, i.e. the UAD Apollo Twin, which is a great audio interface, but they brought this audio interface in to circulation when the transition between outboard gear and software instruments already took place. So they figured, oh, we don't need MIDI no more, so we're not going to put MIDI on this, you know, and they just concentrated on this audio interface. Now, this is a Boss audio interface. I know TDK uses it. I know Domsey said he uses it as well. So this is a good audio interface, no problems. It's top end, and if you wanted to get that, you know, I put a link to where you can get that. It's quite a high end price one, as you can see here. And there's others as well that have Thunderbolt and all that connected to it, whereas this one's probably like a USB 3 version, right? So back to that. That's that. Next is the general audio rule of thumb. So when connecting audio gear, you want to go through the rule of thumb of your audio line out from device A would go to your audio line in on device B. So let's have a typical scenario here, and this image, just for reference, was taken from benzvesco.com. There's also a couple of nice little references I put here. If you click on them, it'll take you to the actual references, and this gives a full in-depth, you know, of how to connect up stuff. I'm going to give you the layman's version because you don't really need to go that deep, but you know, for those of you who like to be thorough and get stuck in, there's a couple of really good articles here about connectivity. But as a general rule of thumb, you go, say for example, you've got your mixer down here, right? This is a mini little mixer, and they're showing your out from your microphone goes to your mic preamp and then to the in. Yeah, your keyboard, your stereo out on your keyboard would go to your line in, right, on your mixer, and that would be 2 lines in, because on these mixers the inputs are mono. So you say, like, if it's an 8-track mixer, it would be 8 tracks of mono. Yeah, so I hope that's making sense to people. If you, like I said, if you've got any questions, pop them down below, and from your whatever that is, I don't know what the hell that is. That's some device. You know, same principle. Outs to the in. Yeah, out to the in. And then from your mixer, you'd go from your control room outs to your speakers. Yeah, so you'd connect that up through there. And depending on what type of speakers you got, some people have got active speakers and passive speakers. Active speakers are those speakers you get like the KRK, Rocket 8s and stuff that have the amplifier already built in, whereas with this, and that's assuming this is this setup, but if your speakers didn't have an amplifier built in, you'd have to go out from your control room out into your amplifier, and then out of your amplifier into your speakers. Yeah, basic setup. Now you've got your DAW, which is for recording, so your main outs would go into your input on your DAW, I guess, and then your output on your DAW would come into the tape ins. So I don't know about this side of it. This section here seems a bit like, it's not quite how I would do it, but anyways, it's all good. I'm sure it will serve you well. Right, now we're talking about connecting samplers. Now the audio cables on your samplers, now if this is what you can see here, is the back of the Akai S3000 XL, right? Now connecting those is sort of straightforward. Now on the back of your mixers, you've got line inputs, right? Now say, like, for example, for an Akai, I probably recommend maybe like a, I don't know, at least a 16-track mixer, right? Like maybe your Mackeys and whatnot. I've actually got, because I've got so much outboard gear, I bought a QU32, Allen and Heath QU32. I'll put a link in that as well, which I haven't done so far, but I'll put a link in the PowerPoint presentation so you guys can check that out, right? So let's assume you've got 32 tracks. We're just going to do the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tracks, just to show you for illustration purposes, right? So you would come on the back of your Akai, right? You've got two stereo. You've got stereo out, left and right. Yeah. Shout to Pablo. Is that Pablo? Big up, mate. Nice to see you, mate. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 outputs, yeah, on your Akai, and also two outputs which form as a left and right stereo. Sorry, my bad. Down here, I got that mixed up earlier. So this is your stereo out, but it's separated into left right. If you just wanted to use the left side, it'd be a left side mono, right? So what you do is you'd wire your left and right stereo out, one there into line 1, then line 2, and then on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you could wire it as number 1 to to here, and so on and so forth. But another way to do it as well is you could probably put these stereo left and right out just for organization purposes. You could put that on the 9 and 10 of your mixer. Yeah, reason why I say that is because when you wire out, you want number 1 here to correspond to track 1, number 2 to 2, output 3 to 3. You know, I'm calling them numbers, but they're outputs. Output 4 to 4, output 5 to 5, and so on and so forth. So you go up to output 8 on the mixer, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and output 8. And then 9 and 10 would be your stereo out on your mixer. Now, your stereo out on your mixer would basically play everything that you can possibly hear. So whatever you hear, it comes out of those two. So I'd start working from the stereo outs first of all. Later on, when you want to do a bit of separation there, what you'll do is you'll start assigning them to outputs, like output 1, yeah, on your Akai. Now, I've done tutorials and stuff on that as well, webinars on how to assign outputs and stuff on the Akai, I believe. If you get stuck, then I'll do a link to that anyway. Right, moving on. So, next up, we've got the record in now. Now, the record in is for when you want to do sampling. Now, you're always going to have to set up your sample in. Now, the way you do that, yeah, would be using your 1/4 inch stereo jacks to 2 times 1/4 inch stereo jacks. So basically, in a nutshell, what we've got here is we've got a headphone socket. Yeah, this is the one with the little kind of 1, 2, 3 or 2 lines, 2 black lines on it here, right? And to 2 of these 1/4 inch jacks, right? Shout to, hang on, who's that there? I can't see properly. Viper. Is it Viper? Do you know what, guys? Let me just get this up on the actual on the screen here. Sorry, folks. I'm just going to do something real quick. Sorry, so I can see who's saying what in the chat box there and that. Right. So bear with me, folks. Bear with me. Let's get that going. Oh no, don't want to be putting that up there. Right. Right, guys. I'm banging to that, but yes. Let me have a quick peek here and see. Here we go. Right, we got it. Let's open up this now. Lovely. Just get this right. Echoing a bit there. Right. Okay, good. Yes, I've got you. Yeah, shout to Viper, man. Big up, mate. Nice one. Nice one. All right, so back again. So what we're doing is we've got a stereo output jack here, right? And 2 mono, and it separates the left and right basically to 2 monos. All you do is you get these 2 ends and you put those into your inputs. So you plug one end into your headphone socket. We're doing this easy, yeah? You don't necessarily always have to put it in the headphone socket. There's other places that you can stick it on the mixer, like maybe the aux send or something like that. But that would be a different configuration because you probably need an aux send 1 and an aux send 2. It gets complicated. So just use the headphones for now. You plug this end into the headphones, the one on the bottom, and the other 2 would go into the input on the back of your sampler. See it there, left mono and right, yeah? So that you pop that in on there, right? So that, and anything you want to sample now, you put through your headphones. Obviously, you've got to turn down your sampler, otherwise you'll get a feedback loop, right? So you have to be careful for that. Just wanted to put that in there one time. And that would be that, right? I'll put a link to, again, to that product on what do you call it? Amazon. Yeah, it's about a tenner for the cable. There you go. And they do smaller ones, and you could just get one of those headphone jack converters. Hang on, you can't see it there. Headphone jack converters that make it bigger. You know, the ones you use for your DJ headphones and whatnot. Yeah? So that's that cable there. Right? Big up Doms, man. Dom's one of the guys who inspired me to that, because he hit me up saying that was the kind of like the needle that broke the camel's back for me, because so many people are saying, how do you wire up the gear, man? And like, I've been meaning to do it where I'm at work. Right, so let's talk about types of audio cables, because this is always something that kind of used to bugger me up when I was going shopping for cables. And I thought I'd get the correct terminology and get it for you guys. So, depending on your speakers that you got set up, normally with these active monitors and stuff like that, you're going to use these XLR cables, yeah? Nordils are quite a good make. So, I would recommend them. I'm a bit of a stickler when it comes to cables, yeah? I don't like using the shitty cables, you know, that kind of would give you wear and tear real quick and start going, because the last thing you want to do when you're wiring up all your gear and getting all this pristine sounding stuff, right, is have dodgy cables, because cables can affect the quality of the sound. And that's something you don't want to do after you've splashed out all that dough, getting all your bits and bobs. Last thing you want to do. Now, there's different lengths, you know, you would know the length of your room, etc., that you need to, and how far. I wouldn't go for like the 1 meters, because, you know, probably 3 to 5 meters is pretty sufficient for most people. So Nutric, yeah, I've heard of the Nutric ones as well, man. Yeah, Pelosi says yeah, I've heard of those. They are big. They are a big name. Let's have a look. Nutric cake. Oh no, hang on 1 minute, mate. Not nutriment. NEU. I've heard of those, you know. UTRICK. Nutric, yeah? Yeah, look, Nutric XLR. Yeah, they're just generally good quality cables as well, man. So big up for pointing that out. Now, next one, 1/4-inch TRS. So these are the ones that we're talking about here, this kind of thing. Again, look out for your Nutrics or whatever. Yeah, these are your 1/4 inches. These, you could use these to string up your Akai, all the same. But also, I would recommend for your Akais, because this is how I got mine set up. I use these snake cables. They call them snakes, but they're called 8-way 3 meter cables. And they're basically 8 pieces, and you just need an 8. And then you just need a double, like maybe a 2-piece, 2 of them. So that would be for your left. These 2 would be for your left and right, yeah, that we spoke about earlier. And this would be for the 1 to 8 to go into your mixer. And these work a treat. I've bought loads of these in the past, and they're very good. I believe you can get them in different lengths if you're looking at it. Look, 3 meters is pretty much good for, especially in my little room that I've got here. 3 meters go a long way. And these are good cables. They're not the best built, but they work well for me, so I'm happy with that. RCA inputs. Now, we talk about RCA connectors. Some things have got phonos on them. I call them phonos, but they call them RCAs. You may need to get this depending on what type of setup you've got, what type of audio interface you've got, etc. It all depends on your audio interface, because let's face it, a lot of companies do things different. So check what cables your audio interface requires. But for the most part, you'd know just by looking at the back and the hole. You'd see a hole on the back of your sound interface or whatever that would fit this kind of size. And that's the layman's way of really working it out. Right, next, guys, let's talk MIDI connection. So, MIDI connection. Now, so far, the types of MIDI cables that I know, there are different scenarios of MIDI cables, or different configurations, but this is the general one that you will need. You won't really need much else than this unless you're getting technical, right? You've got 5-pin. Basically, these are like the old, similar to the old 5-pin DINs, but don't go down that route, the old 5-pin. Don't you digging out them old cables. You get fresh ones. These are MIDI cables, and they're all different lengths. Again, put another link there. 5-pin DIN cables, different lengths depending on how far away. There isn't really much limit to how far. I would say 5 meters is sufficient, again, for most people. And these are the cables that you pretty much need to connect up your gear. Right, so let's get to connectivity. So, on the back of your samplers, Yeah. Now this rule is not just an Akai thing. It's an EMU thing. It's whatever samplers you got. Where you see these three connectors, most items have a MIDI in, a MIDI out, and a MIDI through, right? But having said that, some devices just have a MIDI in and a MIDI out, right? So I'm not trying to confuse anyone here. So I want to keep it simple. Now the general rule is, right? You go out from your DAW, yeah? You go out from your DAW, and then you'd go into your, sorry, out from your DAW, sorry, let me start again. Out from your DAW. Now, remember, some audio interfaces have MIDI out, so you'd go from your MIDI out on your audio interface. If you didn't have that, yeah, you'd have to purchase an outboard MIDI interface, a separate one, yeah? And what you do is you connect the MIDI, that would be connected to your DAW via USB. And then you would go from your MIDI out on your MIDI interface, getting a mouthful here, on your MIDI interface to your MIDI in on your sampler. Just like that. Yeah? So MIDI out on your DAW or MIDI interface to the MIDI in on your sampler. So that's the general rule. So now, if you had more than one sampler, for example, you would need to connect it a different way. More on that later. So, in terms of your keyboard, now you've got different keyboards. You know, when I say your keyboard, you're talking about the keyboard that you play your instruments on and your sound and stuff like that. Yeah, to connect that up, you would need to use. Say if you had one of these fancy ones, you know, the new school ones that don't have MIDI, you could just connect it via USB. But to be honest with you, totally honest, where your setup just has USB only, just use USB. If it's only got USB, or even if it has USB and MIDI, just use USB. Don't connect USB and MIDI together, because what will happen is you'll get double notes in, and they're a nightmare to deal with, right? So don't do that. Either connect one or the other. I would recommend just using the USB that it come with. No worries. But if you've got an old retro keyboard that has MIDI, like, let me have a look at this one. I've got a ref on the air as well. No, that's the wrong ref. All right, never mind. I'll fix that. But if you've got, you know, one of these that has dual, you could either use either, whichever works for you, whichever latency. Shout to Spider, mate. How you doing, dude? Nice, mate. Nice. Okay, so again, on your keyboard out, you would connect your, this is where you connect your MIDI out, yeah, from your keyboard straight into your MIDI in on your interface, right? So MIDI out onto your MIDI in on your either your audio interface or your MIDI interface. I hope I'm not, I hope it's not too confusing for people at the moment. Okay, next up, as I was saying, you connect it from your out here to your MIDI in. Simple as that. So outs always go to in, yeah? Now, speaking about interfaces, you've got the RME UCX. This is the one that I use. Now, on my one, I've got a little, see where it says MIDI there, right? There's a little MIDI socket, and that connects to a breakout cable, yeah? And that breakout cable actually has MIDI sockets on it, right? In and out. So my one's built in, so I don't have to worry. As you can see on here somewhere, I can't remember now, there's a little MIDI signal light as well. Shows you MIDI moving in and out of there. Somewhere, I can't remember where it is. Somewhere around there. Anyway, yeah. As you can see, with the UAD on the back of it, it doesn't have MIDI out. So it's a dedicated interface. Very good, but just dedicated. All right, so talking about connecting samplers now. Now, if you've got more than one piece of outboard gear. Now, I've used two samplers as an example, but this doesn't have to be two samplers. This can be a sampler, Planet Fat module, a JV 2080, you know, a Novation station, whatever, yeah? The main thing you've got to remember is that when you come out of your audio interface into the in of the sampler, do not come to the out of the sampler, because what will happen is they all play the same, and you won't be able to configure them, and that's a totally different bowl of spaghetti altogether. What you want to do is you want to come out as you did in the previous explanation I gave, the next in, and you're just going out and through, out and through, out and through. That way you'll be able to configure all of the channels individually, right? And they won't all start playing the same thing, and you'll be in panic mode thinking, what's going on? I can't get different things to play. Yeah, but we can do another tutorial on like configuring all that stuff up later. But this is the general wiring of it. Yeah, sampler 1 in, then go use a through cable, the through port with another MIDI cable, same MIDI cable again, same type, same 5 in to the in, and that'll get you there. All right, so summary of what we've done so far. Yeah, we've done audio connections. Yeah, connect audio out to line in. Yeah, simple as that. Yeah, that's the general rule of thumb. Never connect audio out to audio out, because what will happen is the signals will meet in the middle and you'll probably blow a transistor on your kit. No good for business. Yeah, MIDI connections, same, connect out and then to in and then through. Again, I'm going to put a link to this PDF or whatever PowerPoint presentation for you guys to have a look at, and I really do hope this helps people. Guys, if you get anything out of this video, please support my website samploids.com. for you Akai enthusiasts like me. I've got some sample packs there for Akai samplers, HXC emulators there for configuration, etc. That will eliminate your floppy drive, blah blah blah. And that's it, guys. Check out Samploids for all your sample packs. Remember to like, share and subscribe. It's a quick live, people. I hope you liked it. Please smash that like button if you got anything out of this, peeps. Love you and leave you. And I'm going to be doing a lot more content. I thought this would come in handy and I hope you found it useful. Peace out, peeps. Oh, before we do that, have we got any questions? Has anyone got any questions? I know there's not a lot of people on the live, yeah? But is there any questions? Let me know now. And I'll answer any questions you got there. We'll do a little Q&A. I forgot to put that on there, man. Let me know. I'm going to allow for a little bit of lag here. You know what I mean? And we do a Q&A. If you want to pick my brains about anything studio related to do with outboard gear, let me know. No questions? Well, all right, guys. Well, if you've got any questions, guys, put it down below in the comments, yeah, and the video itself. And I'll be scanning over and I'll do my best to answer any connectivity issues. From what I've told you, they should take care of everything. Anyway.